Dane Robertson is back on the Pop Culture Experience. Dane?
Oaksy, what's going on, my friend?
Not much, mate. How are you?
Pretty good. Getting on by. All that same redundant stuff that everybody's talking about.
It's become that on the podcast. Every time I introduce somebody, it feels like we need to just address the current state of affairs. So you sort of... I don't even think it's necessarily just, oh, God, the world's fucked. It's more, are you all right? Are you doing okay?
Yeah. No, there's heaps of that now. There's heaps of that. A lot of people like reaching out. Tell you what I don't appreciate.
What?
People
love it. What is
people
it?
From interstate. People from interstate reaching out. Every morning I start with the Sydney team. I have a whip with them.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, how are you going? How is it down there? And they throw their sympathy our way. And I'm like, this sympathy is so insincere. You know what you can do with it? You can fucking stick it up your ass.
Stick it up your ass. It's so true, though. It's not even necessarily the fact they do it. It's more the tone that people do it. Oh, feeling for you down there. You all right?
And I don't think that they actually understand what we're going through. Like,
no.
A lot of them are like, oh, so are you allowed to do like this? Are you allowed to go like to a bar? And I was like, no, I haven't seen my parents since March. Like, I haven't seen some of my best friends in person. I've seen them like once a year. I saw them at a wedding in like February. And they just don't get it.
No.
They're like, fingers crossed. Well, the cases are coming down. I was like, yeah, we've got less cases than you. Yeah. And you're at the pub.
I'm part of this Facebook group for the Brisbane Lions, and it's all like, your brother's in it. He's a Brisbane man. Oh, I know. A tough night last night. We lost a final. It's at time of recording. It was very tough. But 2 days ago, in that group, this bloke posted, hey guys, I got one spare ticket to the prelim tonight. Obviously, for those that are unaware, it was in Queensland. And my mate tagged me in it and said, never been a worse time to be a Victorian. And this bloke replies that he's posting this thing about the ticket, going, guys, really feeling for you down there. Sounds like it's real challenging, but I've got faith that you can pull through. Oh, you've got faith? Oh, okay. Well, if you've got faith, then I've got faith. People are just, the shit people throw out there to, one, make you feel better, but also to make themselves feel a bit better about the freedoms they've got at the moment. It's very interesting. Now, you and I, people that have heard us talk on this podcast before, know that our friendship really blossomed over films, didn't it? I reckon that was what really drew us to a closer point in our friendship.
Well, we met while working at a movie theatre.
Yeah, well, that's true. But I mean, it
is the crux of our friendship.
It's where it all started, to the point where the extended friendship group we exist in often just sort of discard us when we're at a lunch or a brunch, or when we could do that sort of thing. You know, just sort of, oh, they're talking about their movies, just let them be. Now, it's something you and I thoroughly enjoy, texting. Did you see this new trailer? Dane, we live in a world where you and I can't do the thing we love the most, and that is go to the movies. Yeah. What a shit year this is.
Yeah, I was talking about this the other day. I think I've seen one, maybe two films in the theatre this year.
What were they?
And one of them, I think Birds of Prey, and maybe 1974. Is it 1974? 1914.
1917?
There we go.
I'm like, 14 doesn't feel right. I definitely saw both of those. I think maybe The Gentleman might have been this year. Maybe?
Yeah, I saw that last year at a pre-screen.
Oh, well, some of us don't get access to that sort of thing. But even with a very successful pop culture podcast, you don't get screening.
I got free tickets from Roadshow.
No, I thought you might have hooked me up, though, there. You're the one with the ins. I thought you'd go, hey, got a really good opportunity for us. This guy, Dan, right? But yeah, I saw both of those. And I reckon Birds of Prey was the last one I saw, which doesn't sit well with me at all. Like, you know, I didn't mind Birds of Prey. It was okay. I even did a podcast on it, but it doesn't sit right that in 2020, that's likely going to be the last movie I see in a cinema.
Yeah, look, if I died tomorrow, I wouldn't be wrapped with it. I would not be wrapped with it, but yeah.
What do you think, though? Do you think we're a chance to get back into cinemas this year in Victoria?
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not.
You're more across it, though, because of your work. Are other states in Australia able to go to the movies at the moment?
Yeah, so I think, don't quote me on it, but I think they're at like 50% capacity. but the
Okay.
theatres are open. So they can go, but as I'm sure you are well aware, the distributors are not releasing their best content. So some films are coming out. I think Christopher Nolan obviously tried to re-enter the industry with a bang with Tenet, which got released in Australia. And I'm not entirely sure if it got released anywhere else. Maybe in the US, maybe, I don't know. But we got it here in Australia.
Yeah, the US got. I think they got a limited release of some form, and maybe the UK. Yeah, I'm not sure, but so it did get released in other states here, did it?
Yeah, so they've seen it.
That kills you. I can see it on your face. You are a self-proclaimed, on this very podcast, a Christopher Nolan nuffy. That must just be killing you that you're one of the few out there.
I don't think I said I'm a Christopher Nolan nuffy.
No, I added the nuffy.
You're not really self-proclaimed. I think that's an accusation on your end. But I love the man. I was pumped for this film, and it did gut me that we didn't get it. But I thought, we'll probably get it a couple of weeks later. It'll be fine. We'll reopen. But now it very much looks like there is not a chance in this world that we will get it this year. But they are releasing other films, smaller films.
Yeah.
Like Staten Island?
King of Staten Island. I saw the Judd Apatow comedy film. That was good. I don't want to admit how I had to watch it. It wasn't ideal, but that's the issue. When you're in Victoria, you're left with little to no option other than to get things as a bit of a workaround. I really like that. That was a big blockbuster film. They put that one... Actually, in the States, they did that on demand, straight to like digital release. So they didn't even put that in cinemas, I don't believe, just because of the current state of things. But yeah, to your point, there hasn't been much trial, and that's sort of what they did with Tenet. They're like, let's see if we can reboot this industry, and it didn't work at all.
No, Tenet was the one to first go through the wall, and it was not pretty, or over the wall rather, and it wasn't pretty from all reports. Massively underdelivered. I think it had to make like maybe 750 million to like
heaps.
Like break even, dare I say, after like advertising and production costs, and it's fallen grossly short of that. Interestingly enough, other net distributors are now just backing way away. They don't want to be responsible for another outbreak. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine everyone went and saw, 007 and everyone got bloody COVID from it in that session. Like, it's not good PR. So they're pushing it back, and it's a bit of a scary time for the cinema industry, really.
It's the type of thing where you can understand them doing that. To your point, like, there are certain films that do attract a certain demographic of people that are going to be more inclined to run that risk, I think, a little bit. So, like, I remember I was looking at Fast 9, I think it is. Is Fast 9 the next one to come out? And I'm not going to sit here pointing fingers, but having worked at the cinemas like you and I have, there is a certain demographic that comes out for Fast and the Furious. And I dare say, Dane, they're the type that also wear their face masks with the nose showing. It's that sort.
I'll tell you what, you love pointing fingers on stereotyping on the show. I heard you talking the other day, and what were you throwing an accusation around that the moon landing wasn't real? Jesus, you take the gloves off and you don't go easy, do you? Yeah, right. So there's a whole bunch of ferals in their V8s.
Yep.
And they're screws doing doughies in the car.
You said it. You said that, not me. Yeah, you know. There is though. It's a certain type of person. So you're getting the boys. The boys are coming out for Fast 9, and you know what? The boys don't give a shit about lockdown. They haven't at all. They haven't at any point. So they're the ones that go, yeah. Well, what, they want to tell us to wear a mask in the cinema? We'll wear a mask. They get in there, mask off, and you could see it coming from a mile away. Now that's enough about that because you've made me paranoid, but. You can understand not wanting to be associated with it because they've already seen now Tenet, right? Tenet is now associated with the flop. It's the movie that had all the hope in the world. Now we know why it flopped, but the way the media represent things, it's always on the negative. They're always trying to paint it in the most clickbaity way of Tenet flops at the box office. Yeah. No matter what they do, whether it's good intentioned or bad intention, they're going to be at a loss. So why would you risk any bigger of a loss than what you need to? With Tenet, my question is to you, do you reckon they re-release it next year?
They will definitely, I would say they will definitely still release it in cinemas in Melbourne, for sure. We haven't had it.
But what about globally? I mean, do you almost just go, you take it out of the cinemas and you reset and you go, let's launch it again next year? I mean, it feels like no one freaking saw it. It feels like there is a good reason to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Would they now just be making more money if they released it on streaming services, though?
Oh, you would have to imagine somebody's lining up to take it. I would have thought they would have done it by now. But I think it's Nolan, the one that's pushing back against it, isn't he?
I couldn't tell you. Nolan is big advocate for releasing in cinemas first and then having like that 60 or 90-day window between it finishing in the cinemas and going live on streaming services. But I feel like a lot of distributors are now bowing to the pressure, because I would have thought that their revenue is slowing down. They've obviously put out all this money into producing films that were set to be released in 2020.
Yeah.
And then they were producing more films that was in 2020 that were going to be released in 2021. And they were hedging their bets, obviously, and they would have had all their estimates that 2021 they would make, X amount of money for 007, or for, say, Disney's case, would make X amount of money for Black Widow, X amount of money for the Eternals. And so now their revenue has stopped, basically. It's ceased, and they're not getting that revenue in, and they're not putting those films out. So are they between a rock and a hard place where they now are really getting the pressure in order to produce films for the future? Do they have to start getting that revenue coming in? So will they have to put them onto SVOD services? So like films like, I think, like, for example, Black Widow, will they eventually just have to go, we can't financially, it's not reasonable for us to continue delaying it. Let's put it on SVOD and see if we can make some more money off it. Well, it's not even SVOD. It's like you still got to pay an additional value like Mulan.
Yeah, Disney have that ability, so it's on that higher price. I think you pay $30 or I think it was 40, but you also get it for the duration of however long you have that service. Yeah. So you're essentially buying a physical copy, but digitally, I guess, is how you would look at it. It's sort of. Did you see the Trolls? Trolls 3 was put straight to digital earlier this year, and I think that was Universal. I think that did it.
Yeah.
Universal came out and they were the ones that there was that whole controversy because cinemas were then saying they weren't going to show any more Universal films because Universal had turned around and said, shit, we made a lot of money on digital. We might continue to explore this way of distributing our films, not for all films, but for a lot of them. Like, we still want to put out Fast 9 in the cinemas. And that's when cinemas and other various stakeholders were like, you know what, if that's the case, we just won't distribute any of your films, Universal. That's fine. And then there was the whole backflip. They were like, oh, no. All right, take it back. There is obviously some benefit to putting them out there. Now, obviously, with Trolls, and you're in the middle of a lockdown, which isn't always going to be the case, very easy for a parent to go, yeah, you know what? $30, absolutely. That'll keep the kids entertained for 2 hours. You've got repeat viewings for that. I can understand why they had so much success. Surely it isn't a viable long-term over the cinema industry.
Well, here's the thing. This is what I've read up on that, is that although it did do well on streaming services, the original did better in cinemas. Because if you think about it, if you're taking a family of 3, say $20 a ticket, you take, it's a family of 5, say. So that's $100 there, but you pay $30 for it on the streaming service. So it's definitely more financially beneficial for them to release in cinemas. But I think that's what they probably are going to have to do now in the future, is before they make the film, before they bankroll it, they're going to have to decide, are we releasing this in cinemas or are we going to release this in SVOD? And then that will depend how much money they put into producing the film.
Yeah, so I guess it becomes the discussion, doesn't it? It starts becoming, well, we could have full income from this movie, but we maybe just drop the production, the budget that we allow for it, And then they do have the monopoly over the whole thing start to finish. So, I mean, if you've got a film like Joker, for instance, what was the budget for that? 10 mil? They ended up going over, but that was initially the budget. You put Joker on a streaming service or the on-demand. Okay. That's the perfect movie that you could really cash in on. And they're the movies that probably start making cinema chains a little bit more nervous. Because my understanding is a distributor such as Universal, Warner Brothers, they pay these cinema chains to have the films on the screens, correct?
Yeah, I don't actually, to be honest with you, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I don't know the full breakdown. I would imagine, I heard during this whole pandemic, I know a lot of, obviously drive-ins have been a massive return in the way of consuming movies. And I know that they've taken this opportunity and ran with it. They've just boosted the amount they charge for people to use a screen. So whether it's a movie cinema, a production house, or even people, they were hiring them out for anyone to rent, the value in trying to get a screen booked skyrocketed. Yeah. So I imagine that's normally the case in how a distribution of a film would work in a normal cinema chain as well. Again, if you can eliminate that and you're paying maybe a cost to have something on demand instead of in cinemas worldwide, on those smaller budget movies, you start getting nervous for the cinema chains, don't you? Yeah.
Well, there's obviously going to be massive changes to the cinema industry after this. I read, some CEO from Disney said that they're going to be releasing a lot more content direct to their SVOD streaming site, Disney Plus. And he said that isn't necessarily a result of the pandemic. He said the pandemic has fast forwarded the process, but it was always their vision to do so because that is the appetite from consumers. They want to be consuming it inside their homes. So I think that's what will inevitably happen. There will be a lot more films going straight to SVOD. I feel like that will change the type of movie that gets made. They won't have as big a budgets as they previously did because they can't make as much money on SVOD as they would have in cinemas, a la your Netflix type films. Yep. So they notoriously have quite a small budget, but it's really a tale about human emotion. Example, Marriage Story.
Yeah.
But still did really, really well. And that's how I think that the cinema industry will change for the foreseeable future. But I do also feel that it doesn't mean that cinemas are dead. I feel like the cinema industry has gone through struggles in the past. I think in the 30s, it went through a really rough trot. Then it had a lot of prosperity in, I think, World War II. People going to the cinemas for a lot of escapism. But then off the back of that, during like the Vietnam War, there was a lot of positive, fun films that weren't actually a reflection of reality. And in reality, it was quite, the Vietnam War was on, it was quite depressing.
Yeah.
And then so there was an appetite from the consumer. They weren't going to the cinemas because it wasn't a reflection of reality. So there was an appetite for more honest films. And that's when you got your Rat Pack in, like your Scorsese, your Spielbergs, Brian De Palmas. And then again, people were driven back to the cinema, and the popularity skyrocketed again. I feel like this is the next phase of the industry. It will have a decline.
Yeah, I reckon you're right. It feels like we're at another one of those crossroads with the movies where they have to find a new way to evolve. Whether that is, I guess, to your point about the Rat Pack, your Scorseses and stuff, that was a change that needed to be made by the movie studio. Like that was something where the movie studio took it upon themselves to make that change. Whereas this one feels like it's more the cinema industry, the actual cinema chains need to find a way to make people want to come back and give them a reason to come back. You could argue, to go back to that Scorsese argument, that a Nolan, that's what he's doing. He wants to keep the cinema industry alive. Whereas I feel like at the moment, the studios in this argument, unlike they were in maybe the 60s, they've got this new platform. They're like, hey, we're all right. If shit goes real bad and cinemas go away, we will survive. Not ideal, but we've got an option. Whereas in the years that we're in now, as you said before, there was, the Great Depression or there was a world war. We live in a pandemic now where people don't want to be in an enclosed room with other people out of fear of, catching a virus. What is it, though, that the cinema industry needs to do, considering that they don't have any control over making movies? They rely on the movies being made and given to them. You and I worked for a company that put in recliner seats a couple of years ago, and that was the big, well, I don't care. I don't work there anymore. So that's my observation, was that was their way of separating themselves, getting people back into cinemas. And you could say it worked.
Well, that was the whole thing, is enhancing the customer's experience and getting them into cinemas by making it more comfortable, a more enjoyable, more luxurious experience than you would have at home. It's actually, I try to change it to be like, you might put on a shirt and go to the cinemas. You might have a drink like of alcohol when you're at the cinemas. You can actually dine at the cinemas.
It's an event.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I still think that will come back eventually. Like I've said, the cinema industry have had a lot of struggles in the past. And I think it just comes down to consumer appetite and what they want. And at the moment, they're lazy. We're lazy as fuck.
Yeah.
And we just want to order our Uber Eats on the couch and click a button and watch a film.
Yeah.
But I think eventually it will change and there will become a new tipping point, because I have a theory that everything works in cycles. And eventually there will be an appetite that people are like, I want to go outside. I don't want to just sit in my own filth, dusting Dorito dust off my shirt and watch, a film on my couch.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's always going to be, it's hard to know if it's just us. You and I romanticize the movie experience. Yeah, you're a classic to go to a movie with. You are so picky, and it rubbed off on me in the worst way. Your pickiness about sounds around you. Like, if somebody's chewing popcorn just in the most obscure kind of way, you'll be like, that needs to stop real quick. Yeah. Or you'll go, you know what? I'm only going to gold class now because there's usually only 5 other people in there. There's a good chance none of them will be a fuckhead. So like,
if you're forking out $40 to go see a film, generally you're gonna not be a fuckhead.
Yeah, you're so true. And they're usually a bit more, I like to think they're a little bit more upper class people. That's why you go there. You don't have the riffraff. You don't have the Fast 9 crowd. So to that point, I guess, that's always going to be there. There's always going to be that wanting to experience a movie in that environment, at least for me, where I'm not going to have to worry about picking up my phone and getting stuck on it. Like if I'm at home, I can do that. If I'm in a movie cinema, that movie is not going to get impacted by me on my phone because it's against the rules. There is a social expectation on us being in a movie cinema that holds you accountable and therefore able to enjoy the movie a bit more. Again, it comes back to that whole experience that I agree with you. I don't think it's going to go away forever. At least I hope not.
I don't think it will. I genuinely think that, I can't remember how many actual cinema complexes there are in Australia, but I think that number will be also driven down because it's not financially beneficial for them to survive with, say, it's 350 actual cinema locations. Yep. It might get halved. Like, who knows? The amount of locations will be reduced. This is one of the debates I was having with my sister last night as well. To your point about how much we love it, do other people love it as much as us?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I mean. That's what concerns me is, are we romanticizing it too much? Do people not care about a movie more than just, it's something to do for 2 hours? You and I come at a movie and go, I want this to change my life and impact it in some way moving forward. Like, I want to be different on the other side of this. Yeah. A lot of people, mate, turn up to a movie for a social interaction. If those people can go, you know what, I can make my popcorn at home, save myself $50 on food that I'm overcharged for at a movie cinema, watch it at home. You know what, we can all chip in $5 each. We'll have 6 of us there. We cover the cost of the movie. Come over and you know what, we can hang out for a couple hours afterwards and watch something. We can watch a couple movies.
Yeah.
I think there is. I think there is a chance we are in the minority of the whole
I think
thing.
we've answered our own question, really. The
Shit.
fact that is the fact. Like, I know people who are watching movies and TV shows on their phones.
Yeah.
People watching them on their phones on like public transport,
Kills
it
me.
actually breaks my heart because there's so much more that you can pick up on a big screen. And I guess that's the thing we've got to differentiate here. There's the difference between a movie and going to the cinema. Like, because you can still be, a movie can still have that physical effect on you, like no matter where you watch it. But I feel being completely and utterly encapsulated and engrossed in the film, I tend to think that is an easier thing to facilitate when you are in a theatre, because you are in that darkened auditorium. As you said, no phone policy. It's shunned upon if you pick up your phone. You're shunned if you talk. And also because you have kind of paid and gone out for it, I always say you value things that you've paid,
Yeah.
$80 for or whatever you have.
Yeah.
And because you've gone out and you've decided on your Friday night, I'm actually going to have a shave. I'm going to take my partner out and we're going to go and enjoy it. You value it a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so I am always like, I honestly think you don't get the true value of a film unless you see it in a theatre.
I agree.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. Just talking about it right now, if somebody heard that, they'd just be like, this guy's a fucking wanker. Yes, you do. We definitely romanticize the whole experience, but it is a stunning experience. I love it.
It is, and you can't beat it. But I guess what you're sort of saying is it all comes back to what the consumer is wanting, and that's what they're going to get. So I mean, we live in a world now where people will sit there and watch a YouTube streamer play a game on YouTube for 40 minutes. And they'll go, that's the night. Like, what'd you do tonight? Oh, I watched, what's his name, PewDiePie or whatever it is, play a game for 40 minutes. I was talking to my girlfriend for a bit.
Is that what people do?
That's what people do. At least that's what there is. Certainly, I think from us down, a younger demographic which do that. Like, they'll sit there and just bounce between YouTube streamers. And that's the entertainment they want. You and I sit there and go, I want this script to have been fleshed out for 6 months, have maybe, 5 or 6 drafts, go through a couple of producers. Who's executive producing this? There's none of that, mate. There's people like me who sit there, turn on a camera, get a lot more views than me, and talk to it, and people go, that's entertainment. That is great. Yeah. That's the concern, is that, did you see Quibi? Did you ever see that app that got launched just recently? It's called Quibi, and it's already defined. I think it's been purchased by somebody else, but the whole idea of the platform was it's a streaming platform that puts out original content, but it's only watchable on your phone. So like it's only playable on a device. So I think maybe an iPad as well, something like with a slightly bigger screen, can't project it onto a TV through Apple Play or anything like that. It's all phone and device-based content. And they've launched that based on how people consume YouTube. Look at that. Like, YouTube is, people sit there on their phone. As you said, people are on transport and they're watching on their phones. They saw that there's a market for it. Now, it wasn't as successful as what they needed it to be. They started producing quite high-end stuff that no one knew about Quibi. Their marketing was poor and it all just fell apart. But the idea was correct, that's what people want. That's where people want to stream. There's a reason why you can watch Netflix on your phone. What makes people go to a cinema if they can do that? And that's what they want, to the point where companies are willing to invest millions in developing apps and further pushing content out on these device-based platforms.
Well, I don't know much about it, but just based off what you are saying, my guess would be one of the reasons that failed is people want options. They don't want to be forced into having to watch on a tablet or an iPhone.
Yep.
They want to be able to watch it whenever the fuck they want, on whatever the fuck they want, because we are so picky and we have everything now at the touch of our fingers like that. Mm-hmm. And so they want it whenever they can, whenever they want. And so for the fact that they didn't have the option and the flexibility there, that would be my guess as to why that perhaps failed.
I would imagine you're probably right, which goes back to the whole argument of, people being able to hit play on a movie when they want to. So, you don't have to be at a session time on time. You can have people over. It's like, do you want to put the movie on yet? Nah, not yet. Okay, we'll have another drink. We'll put it on at maybe 9:30 and say, you dictate your schedule. And I feel like people are becoming more and more hyper aware, especially you and I were talking before all this about our work at the moment and people's work-life balance changing during this pandemic of, I can have a bit more control over my time and what I do with my time. Now I'm working from home. I've got a bit more flexibility. People are only becoming more aware of taking back control over your time and working to your schedule. Good or bad, I feel like that's probably only going to get enhanced.
Big time. It is that demand. Everything's going towards that way. Yeah, that is what the customer wants. I mean, that's what I want. Like, I'm going to be honest, but I also want to have that option of having these mega blockbusters. I want to have them released in the cinema. I don't want the Fast 9 riffraff in there. I
know. I've just realised what you and I want. It's just dawned on me. We don't want anything we're talking about. We don't want the cinema industry to necessarily survive and continue. We just want what we've always wanted, and that's to watch the movie at home, but in our own personal cinema, our home cinema with our recliner chairs, maybe somebody behind us, a friend that we can invite over that can be on the popper duty. They can pop all the popcorn, maybe a little self-serve drinks, a fridge. That's what we want. We just want the big screen with the recliners.
No, but you know what? I do like that social interaction as well as going out and going to the cinema. It does. It's just a little bit of an event. Like, it is a little bit special. Like the fact that I do have to change out of my shirt and put a proper shirt on and not be wearing my PJs, go out, have to speak to the person behind the ticket counter and engage with people that I haven't engaged with. And I don't know, there just seems to be like the last really great cinema experience that I had. I think everyone is great, but the one where there was a packed cinema and you feel the energy off all of the crowd was Avengers last year.
Yeah.
Like, I think I went and saw it 2 or 3 times in cinema, and just hearing the cinema and the audience gasp and cheer and smile and laugh, that stuff is honestly amazing. I love it. It's so infectious as well. Like, if you're seeing a comedy and you've got 120 people laughing, you can't help but start laughing. Yep. And that's the magic of the cinema that we really need to retain.
That's what I was going to say. They talk about movie magic, and that's often referred to like special effects and suspension of disbelief. But to me, movie magic is what you've just said, is when a movie can move a group of people all in a room at once to act and react in the same way, in the same moments. That's when you sit there and you just go, this is what this is all about. I like where you're going with that, though. I feel like we've sort of been a bit why they shouldn't survive, movie cinemas. But let's talk about why, like, what we actually like about it, because that's a good point that you raised. So, like, for me, there is something about going to a place where they're there to provide you just a really good night out. It's like, every workplace has staff that you might come across somebody like you would at Macca's that you just go, this prick doesn't want to be here. But on the odd occasion, especially if you're going to a gold class or something a little bit where you're spending a little bit more, you come across those staff that are there to just give you the best night, a stress-free night. They come up, hey guys, what can I take your order? What do you want? Hey, you know what I can do for you? I can put this into a deal for you. You've got people that are trying to limit the decisions and the stress of pulling off this event of watching a movie with friends. You've got people that are just going to do it all for you. If there's a jerk that's sitting there and ruining the movie, if there's a technical glitch with the movie, someone else is going to worry about it. There's something about that I still like. There's something about handing your ticket over. They rip it for you. They direct you where to go. They show you where the toilets are. You just feel a little bit pampered almost. And I think we took it for granted. I honestly do, because you sit down now, you got to go make your own popcorn in the kitchen. You got to talk to, somebody else that lives in your house for 5 minutes because they need to ask you something. You don't have that when you go to the movie cinema. And I think it is undervalued a little bit, the service that you get by going to the movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that in those kind of gold class or your premier Lux Lounge, all that kind of thing, I think there is an elevated service
Mm.
that does enhance that experience. And I do think that the appetite from a lot of people is probably still there to go to the cinemas.
Mm.
However, I just don't think that they go as much as perhaps you and I would. I was
No.
talking to somebody about that again yesterday in preparation for this. Is how often would you say the average person goes to the cinemas a year? Because like I speak to all my friends, right, and they're all like, I cannot wait for the cinemas to reopen. Like I am buzzing to get my gob around a big juicy chop top and a bucket of popcorn and a Diet Coke. But do they go as much as you and I? I don't think they would. Like I'd almost say maybe once a quarter. So like 4 times a year.
I think at best.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. And it's funny though you say it, because I reckon it might almost contradict our point from earlier, or at least support that we're not the only ones. I think that is the romanticized event of going. People, like what you just said, when you ask people, you talk about going to the movies, like, oh, I'd kill for a bucket of popcorn, a Coke, a Choc Top. No one's specifying what they're watching on the screen, because you never know what you're watching. That's not why you're necessarily there. You're probably there because a movie's got you excited. But the thing that gets you talking and wanting to get there to watch the movie is everything else that comes with it. So the fact that you've got friends where you go, I just don't reckon they go that often. It's funny that the trimmings around the event of going to the movies are still what the movie cinemas have in their favor. There's something about movie cinema popcorn that you just can't recreate at home. I don't know what it is, but you can't.
Yeah, I don't know. There's heroin in that shit.
Oh.
I think, I don't know. You make a very good point. It is that people talk about the whole experience rather than the film, even.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't, we are so critical, well, myself, I know, is so critical of the film, but people really enjoy everything else that comes with it. And it is that social aspect. It is that experience. It's going to the date night and all that kind of thing. Jeez, I don't know. I feel like we're talking in circles, but...
So do I. I feel like we're contradicting points we're making. I think the main concern is more so that can cinemas survive long enough for people to get back to a point in this whole pandemic and in a post-pandemic world where they feel comfortable enough in the state of affairs that we live in, where they go, okay, as much as I love going to the movies and I love all that stuff, is that a good enough trade-off for me to go? Like, is it worth me going and sitting in a potentially full cinema where there's like people with you know what I mean? Like it's surviving long enough.
Here's a question for you. Do you think that a lot of people aren't going to the cinemas because of the hygiene reasons?
I wouldn't go for that reason.
Really? Yeah, right.
And
you are a bit of a coward.
I've always been a coward, Dane. You know that.
You would be at the doctors before and after. You're like, I want you to check for chlamydia. And they're like, mate, you were just at the cinemas. And you're like, check for it. Really, that's interesting, because I kind of think that it's, I don't know if it's that as much. My guess would have probably been that it's at like half capacity, and also the blockbusters aren't being released. Yeah. So why would I go?
Yeah, look.
But they're saying that the Tenet did get released. So you do have a good point. And it flopped. So you do have a good point.
I just think from me, I can only speak personally as to why it's not even that I would be concerned with it. I wouldn't be going there as much as I'm a hypochondriac, a well-documented hypochondriac. I don't think I would even be in a position to go to the movies unless it was quite safe to do so. I think it's like they're only going to be open if they're allowed to be open. And if they're allowed to be open, I would imagine there's good reason. Now, still putting myself in that position, it kind of becomes, if I'm walking into a movie cinema with a mask on, the event, there's something in the back of my mind. Things aren't normal. Like I'm going to be sitting there. I'm going to be pulling my mask down, eating my popcorn. If you have your mask off, you're going to be copping looks. I'm like, oh, did that bloke down there look at me funny? suddenly I'm not able to be entrenched in the movie.
Well, so are you never going to the pub again? Are you never going to a restaurant again? Are you never going to a cafe again? What is, like, in all honestly, what is your stance on that? Because this is potentially the world we're living in for the foreseeable future, especially here in Melbourne. These masks don't look like they're going until we have a vaccine.
It's interesting because in between the two lockdowns that we had, this one's been far more severe than the last. I went to restaurants and all that sort of stuff, and it felt very. It felt very. I don't know. It felt very safe to do so. Like, you felt like these places are taking extra precaution with everything they're doing, and you felt like you're almost part of this. We're all trying to do this together right now. Like, oh, yep, I'm happy to be. You need me to write my name down here? Yep, okay, I'm do that. No worries. What do you need from me? That's all right. I just need some good food. Like, we're good. Yeah. I think it's my biggest concern is just having the experience tainted that little bit and just not being able to fully invest in what I'm there for, which is watch a movie for 2 hours straight without at some point in time it creeping into my mind of somebody's coughing up the back. You know what I mean? Like, just those things where...
Don't you think those same precautions that they had at the restaurant or the cafe, and you said you enjoyed that and you felt like the hygiene was actually increased because it was literally their livelihood to do so. Yeah. If they fail to meet those standards, they're going to be shut down. And the same goes in the cinema.
Yeah. Look, you're right. I think you know why I think I judge them on different scales is because, one, a restaurant is so personal. It's so, there is, you know what? It's a mum and pop store that they call them in America, or whereas a cinema chain or even a fast food like a Macca's. I'm sorry. I'm sure Macca's are super safe. I'm sure all those takeaway ones are, but there's just something about it's a streamlined process, and it's part of a franchise where, like, things. Remember the movie The Founder? Great movie with Michael Keaton, and he starts Macca's. This character, Ray Kroc, I think his name was, and he starts these franchises. He stole it. But anyway, he starts franchising these stores. And he starts realizing, God, I can't maintain the same quality of cleanliness and service and quality of food across all these stores because you don't have everyone on the same page. I kind of think I apply that in some weird way where I just go, yeah, could there be a fall down along the way here?
That's not a bad point you made there, actually, Ace. I'm on board. But one thing I can guarantee is you'll never have this podcast sponsored by McDonald's.
No, absolutely not. And I didn't intend to be honest, Dane.
It's not your crowd. It's the riffraff. It's the Fast 9 riffraff. It
is the Fast 9 riffraff. I don't know anything about any in particular places. I just mean, you know what? Maccas are like the Coke of the industry. They get branded widely as, oh yeah, you're having Coke for that. You're having Maccas. But you are right in that there has to be some COVID normal. And that's probably going to involve wearing a mask to a cinema. So that's probably just something I'll have to get used to because guess what? Next year there's going to be movies out that I want to go see and that will tempt me enough to get there.
That's the thing. Will they say we get the vaccine and stuff, right? We get a vaccine across the world and they start releasing movies again. Do you think that as many people are going to be going back to the movies? To cinemas, sorry.
Well, yeah, I just think it comes back to, by that point, what's changed? What have movie studios changed in terms of what's their stance? By then, they might go, you know what? We've adjusted to this climate. We've adjusted we've pivoted to a way where as you said, what you said off the top here was very true in that they readjust their budgets for films. They're punching out much more films per year. Suddenly there's more streaming sites popping up. Universal have a streaming site, all that sort of thing. They might pivot to that point where they don't need a cinema chain. Conversely, we might still be sitting here saying, oh, they still haven't released Wonder Woman or, Fast 9, Bond, for instance. If that's still the case, I think there is still an audience for it. I think I would go back for some of those movies. So it's a matter of them being able to survive until then, though, because I still think that's a while off.
Yeah, absolutely. So
what do you think?
I almost think that probably perhaps I agree with what that Disney CEO said, that the consumer appetite is that they want to consume more films at home, and so they will.
Yeah.
And so they will release more films at home, which will therefore decrease the traffic to cinemas inevitably. So more cinemas will close, and there won't be as many films released in cinemas, and therefore as much audience going to cinemas.
It's hard because none of us know what the hell this is all going to result in. We don't even know what restaurants will still be around come the end of this, let alone what movies and cinemas will. Tell me though, let's be a little bit more positive, all right? Let's look at.
Yeah. Go on.
Let's talk what movies could get you back in. Now Tenant's gone, and they're going to reshape their whole approach to this. They're not going to bring out movies now until it's good and expected that a certain amount of people will turn up. What's getting you back into those movie cinemas? I'm starting to think maybe anything will do at this point for you, but talk to me about...
I'd go tomorrow if they were open in Melbourne.
It wouldn't matter on the movie?
It probably would matter on the film, but...
Surely.
One that would really get me in, like really to get me in a cinema where I knew the chance of getting coronavirus was high.
Yep.
It would have to be Batman.
Yeah, surely. I think that's the one you and I are both probably waiting for. But it almost has to be something at this point that you just go, there's just no way I'm not going to go see that. Like Batman came out, right? Let's say it comes out and we're still in this predicament in Victoria where we can't go to the movies. I would imagine you and I are hopping the border. Now, let's be honest. As much as you wanted to see Tenet, and I'm sure you really wanted to see Tenet, I don't even think you would have gotten to that point. But there's certain movies that you go, I can't wait for that, and I know I'm going to get spoiled with that. I need to just see the friggin' thing.
Take up residency in Brisbane, I reckon, for a couple of weeks.
It's worthwhile. I reckon it's a fair reason to move for sure. I don't reckon Wonder Woman gets me there.
Absolutely. Wonder Woman is going to fucking stink.
What's going to be worse in your book? You're one of the great harsh critics on the podcast. What's going to be worse? Wonder Woman or Black Widow?
Oh, great question. Great question.
Both shit.
No, I reckon definitely Wonder Woman. Definitely Wonder Woman looks like garbage. But I'm here. Black Widow. The trailer doesn't look great. However, it's a part of the Marvel universe. So it's got my backing for sure.
See, you watch Black Widow get treated with the kiddiest of gloves just because it's there has to be something to that movie. Maybe I just didn't get it, but it's Marvel, so it must be good.
You're right, but mate, DC is garbage. It has been garbage for a while now, and Wonder Woman was awful. And Kristen Wiig as Cheetah, like, come on, guys.
You don't like the serious turn for a comedic actor?
It's fine if you can pull it off, but that film is very much for the kiddies.
Yeah, well,
there's no depth. That's the thing. Those DC films, zero depth.
Are you a Stranger Things fan though?
Yes. Yeah. First season was good. Second season, yeah.
Okay. So that's what kind of. Well, no, it just sort of I sort of associate the two similar because of the 80s theme. Like there is something about that 80s theme. It's very fun, very colourful, and something about that gets me there a little bit more. I wasn't big on the first Wonder Woman. You know that. I hate that World War I time period. Yeah. But, 80s...
you hate the veterans? Can I get that on record? You hate all veterans?
Dane, I know that you said that. I don't...
I'm really trying to put words in your mouth. You just know how to stroke.
I think I almost just faked a technical issue and just called off the podcast at that point. That was unbelievable for you to attempt that. What are you...
Yeah, it was a fair journey. Anyway, go on. You hated that era.
I hated that era, but yeah, I don't know. Something about the 80s gets me a little bit more interested. I think the whole...
All right, so here'd be my criticism. Sorry to cut you off, but
yeah, go on.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
My criticism of that would be the Stranger Things made the 80s really cool, and that nostalgia and that period. And a lot of different franchises, movies, TV show have been trying to tap into that for a while.
Yeah.
But when did Stranger Things, the first season release? I would almost say 2016.
I was about to say 2016. So yeah, thereabouts.
Wonder Woman will get released in 2021. So it is 5 years too late. And that is very, very on trend for DC, trying to copy other successful franchises and failing miserably. You're too late, Wonder Woman. Give it up. Bloody hell, what a woeful excuse for a production, those DC films. Obviously, Joker and Batman aside, but bloody hell.
Obviously. I love that I managed to, even a podcast where I don't intend to go down, I have to get you a little bit riled up about the current state of DC films.
It's hard not to. It just fascinates me so much because those characters do have so much depth. And specifically because you read the comics, there's so much depth to those characters and they just skim over it. And you can read into things a little bit more because of your comic book knowledge about those DC films. But for your common cinema goer, it just really lacks that depth. Sorry, you've
always said that though, and it is a good point. You can't rely on the minority of people that do read comics to understand little nods and things to get that little bit more out of a movie where it's probably lacking. I might be a little bit more forgiving of Batman v Superman because there was other things I got a little kick out of as being a real entrenched fan in the comics. So. All right, mate.
Sorry, to ask you the question back, Oaksy, what's getting you into cinemas? How rude of me. I just feel like you're the host, so you ask me questions. But
that's usually how it works. Let me see. You obviously said Batman. That's the annoying thing is a lot of things are getting pushed back in their release dates because of production's been shut down.
What's your biggest disappointment that's been pushed back?
I mean, Batman, obviously, let's be honest, but...
Well, give me a fucking different answer, please.
No, well, you know what I'm really excited for? And I reckon you might be in the same camp here, is Dune. I am really excited for Dune. I reckon it's going to be... I've loved the most recent Blade Runner. Just in terms of like a movie to experience in the cinemas, that's sort of... I don't know. There's just certain movies you need to experience in a cinema. I reckon that's one of them. I love that it reminds me of not only Blade Runner 20... What was it? 20-something?
2042.
There you go. I'll take your word for it. And Mad Max Fury Road. Like, those two things just seem like, from my understanding of Dune, it feels like that's sort of what... it sort of follows that sort of trend, and I love those movies. So that gets me pretty excited, but that's already been pushed back to December. It was meant to be out already, I think. And you're a big fan of that Timothy, what's his name? Yeah.
I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but Jesus, I have a man crush on that fella.
He's...
Did you see the trailer?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't totally in love with it. I'm fascinated by the concept because I've heard that that's pretty much the source material for a lot of sci-fi films, like Star Wars and, to your point, Mad Max and all that kind of gear. It was inspired from the novel.
Yeah.
Have you watched the David Lynch one?
No, I haven't. The one with Sting. Sting's in it, isn't he? Pretty.
Is he? No, I know nothing about it. I've heard it's an absolute dumpster fire.
Yeah, Sting is in it, I'm pretty sure. But apparently, it depends, I think, who you ask. If you ask people that were around when that was released, they're big fans. It's actually quite well regarded. Yeah. I think it's quite well regarded by fans of the source material. But I think as a general box office, I think people are kind of like, what the fuck was this about? Like, what happened?
David
those
Lynch
people look weird. Yeah, he's odd.
Have you seen Mulholland Drive, like the movie?
No, I haven't. It's one that I've been meaning to get around to.
One of those art films that you've got to pretend that you like it.
Or else you get judged.
Smart. I was like, oh yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, I liked the cinematography.
Yeah. You and I, when we were at uni, had plenty of those movies where you throw a movie title out there just so people go, you belong here. You definitely.
He's got style. I don't know what else has even been pushed back. I've kind of touched off with all of the news because it's been nothing but depressing.
Yeah, there's been no point to keep on top of it. What else has there been? I guess. Jeez, I don't even know.
This year was going to be a bit of a stinker in terms of releases, I thought, anyway, aside from Tenet. And now that 2020 has just become 2021.
Yeah.
So now it just means that we've got 12 months of shit content ahead of us.
Shocking.
So there's something to look forward to.
Yeah, so that's a positive to take out of it. I don't know what it is. I'm never excited for a Bond movie. Never. But when it comes close, I get there. When it's approaching and they ramp up the publicity for it, I find myself going, yeah, let's see what James is up to.
Because he's so cool.
I think it is. It's the guy attraction, isn't it? It's seeing a guy that's very cool, he's a killer, and he drives cool cars, gets the girl, and you go, let's go live there for 2 hours. That'd be all right.
I was never a fan of the Bond franchise, but earlier this year I watched Casino Royale with Daniel Craig.
Yep.
And I think that's basically the only good Daniel Craig Bond film, from my understanding.
Oh, that is all right. Let's put the heat back on you. I'm going to cut this out for the socials this week. He's considered the best Bond.
I think that's debatable. I think that's very debatable.
I don't think he is, but I think he's largely held in the general public. Was
Casino Royale the first one?
Yeah, that was his first one.
I feel like Casino Royale was really, really well regarded because it flipped a lot of the conventions of the Bond franchise on its head in terms of like the females in it and that kind of thing. And it was a lot more grungy and real and down to earth and all that time of gear.
Yeah.
But then I felt like it's had a steady decline. And I don't know, I can't recall what came after it in what order, but I didn't like the other ones.
I didn't like the second one he did, but there was Skyfall. Don't forget about Skyfall. That was a pretty big movie.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a pretty good Bond film. And
I know that they do well at the box office.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure the quality is that good. And I know that this production had so many issues. I think they were writing the scripts day to day.
Yeah,
as it was being shot. But there's been films that have done that before and come out to be absolute rippers. So,
well, that's a good example. It's probably a good example of a film that might benefit from these constant delays, pushback. I'd forgotten, to be honest, about that. I'd forgotten that this was a really problematic production. And you and I have said this numerous times. For people like us that follow along with it, the Bond stuff was so big it was making the news at one point, like a sort of a mainstream news type thing. You can't not take that baggage in with you when you watch a movie. I can't anyway. I take it in and I go, it felt a bit disjointed. It was probably because of the production issues. This might benefit from it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think whoever it was that directed it has said that they haven't changed it at all since they put it in the can. And it was ready for release. I don't know when it was ready for release. April. It was April, and then
early
it got pushed
this year
to November, and then it's been pushed to June or July next year.
Geez, we live in a shit world at the moment. This is what we deal with, constant movie pushbacks.
This is a bit off topic, but kind of S4 cinema. Did you see Milan? Did you fork out the cash for it?
I didn't because it's funny. I kind of had an issue with it. I kind of had an issue with the distribution of it. Like, it's one thing to... I don't know. I didn't, but... I heard a lot of arguments as to why they were charging too much for it, and I kind of thought it was pretty steep. Here in Australia, when you do the conversion, I think it was like $30. No, it was more. It was $40 US, which converted to like 62 or something Australian. I'm like, I don't want to see it that bad.
My sister paid for it, so no issues on that front. But I think it was like 35.
Here.
I think that's what she paid for it. Yeah.
Oh, okay, well maybe
save your pennies because it's shit house.
Okay, so no good. I'd never seen the original. I know. Yeah.
No, neither have I. I've missed out on a lot of those Disney classic animations because I was deprived of childhood. But it wasn't a great film. It was really, really poor, in fact. And that was one I was excited for because the trailer looked really, really good.
Did you like Aladdin, the live-action Aladdin?
I didn't see that. Apparently, are they also mixed reviews?
I really like that. Again, I hadn't seen Aladdin. I'm similar to you where I think it's funny. I spoke about this on last week's episode, how when you're a kid, you sort of you're exposed to the content your parents are willing to fork out for. So like, you have your 6 VHS tapes and that's it. You sort of you run them into the ground. You don't get a constant turnover. So I had, Lion King, Toy Story. Yeah. Don't ask me why, but I always had Pocahontas.
I reckon we had that too. And I loved it. It was my sister's, yeah.
Yes, I loved it. So a few of those, but I never saw things like Beauty and the Beast or Lady and the Tramp even, or any of those that are now getting those live action reboots. So when I saw Aladdin, I went with Georgia and she was like, oh, I loved this as a kid. Went and saw it. And a lot of people were like, oh, it's just not as good as the original. I walked out thinking, geez, that Will Smith is charismatic and very enjoyable. I forgot. And very enjoyable movie. The music was great. I liked it. But I'm also somebody that enjoyed the live action Lion King. So I think I've got... Oh, fuck off.
They're damned if they do, damned if they don't. Because as you said, you've got half of the crowd that are like, I want a different movie from the original.
Yep.
And then the other half are like, I want it identical to the original. And they got that with Lion King, but geez, the Lion King was shit.
Didn't like the realism?
I think I did a podcast about it, and I narrowed it down to why I didn't like it is because it's a cartoon musical.
I remember this actually.
About animals.
Yep.
And they've made it a realistic, like drama.
Yeah.
Like David Attenborough shot it. It was garbage.
Did you see they're doing number 2?
Oh, bloody hell. Those bastards didn't do anything, mate, they, for $1.
Well, it's interesting because what they've done is there's apparently they're doing number 2, but they're not doing what the number 2 was in the animated realm. So like, yeah, but you know what?
That doesn't have the same following, so they can go rogue.
Absolutely. I saw it and I thought, you know what? Great call. Do what you want, because I couldn't bloody for the life of me tell you what number 2 was. But as you said, damned if they do, damned if they don't. There is now an online following that wants Simba's Pride or whatever it is to be shot for shot remade. Mate, it's amazing. You can't do a thing right.
I actually am at my wit's end with the internet and all that talk, because everyone has an opinion and everyone gets to put it out there. And I don't think that that's the way it should be. There should be some select people that get an opinion and that's it.
Like you and I.
yeah, true.
Yeah, because that's what we do. That's what we do.
Put our opinion out there. But no one's listening to it, so it's fine.
Nah,
it's just you and me talking.
Yeah, and that's all these are. And that's why we like to do it, because we like the sound of our own voice. Mate,
absolutely.
It's been a pleasure. It always is. Thanks for talking about the state of the movie industry. I don't know if we were too hard. Do you think we were too hard? Like, is it too negative and too there's not enough optimism?
No, I definitely do think that the theatre industry, the cinema industry is fucked. But I think it is a cycle, and maybe 10, 15, 20, 30 years, it will come back. The appetite for the consumer to go out and see a film at the theatre will come back. So hold on to your hats for another 30 years and we'll get there.
30 years?
Yeah.
Not long to wait, guys. Hang tight for that. Dane, thanks for joining the podcast, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate. Take it easy.